If I hadn't made it apparent already, let me just say it. I'm pretty late to things. My history as a gameplay channel has not been the best. Big game titles either didn't come out when the game came out, which would have really benefited me, which makes no sense on why I did the things I did. And then there are other big game titles that came out, I started playing them when they came out, and then I just decided to wait a few months to actually start uploading more of those videos, which would have garnered more views. It makes no sense. So it's not a big surprise that I decided to make a comeback, an actual comeback this time, about something that happened 2 months ago. Yes, by the title of the video, yes, it's about the whole Spider-Man controversy. If you aren't already caught up to speed, the whole Disney and Sony thing over Spider-Man this past summer really happened around the same time me and my ex broke up, and it was very similar because it seemed like nothing at the time, but it blew up out of proportion much more as time moved on.
And
Everything was happy in the end because then Disney and Sony decided to make a deal to put Spider-Man back into the MCU, what the fans wanted and what obviously would make the most money.
I won't ever slack up, punk, you better back up. Try and play the role and you're the whole crew will act up. Get up, stand up, come on, throw your hands up. If you got the feeling, jump up, touch the ceiling, monsters of fun.
This resolution happened back in September, so why the hell am I covering it now? Well, the reason I'm coming back for this now is because I want to answer the question, who is really to blame? There are people who are on the side of Disney, and there are people who are on the side of Sony. For me, it's both of them. Personally speaking, I find that this event with Spider-Man was inevitable. I think the easiest company to pick on is Sony. Sony's very, how we say, protective of their properties. They have a history of being very, very strict with their properties. There are a few examples are last year's E3 when Fortnite was revealed for the Switch. Yes, I know, those fans are ripping themselves apart. However, when Fortnite came out on the Nintendo Switch and people had PS4 accounts and wanted to link their account to their Nintendo Switch and move it from their PlayStation, Sony locked their accounts. This was the biggest gaming store out of E3 of 2018, and this is the year Smash Brothers was coming out. You know how sad that is, that this was the big story? Another good example of Sony's complete overprotection or doing whatever the hell they please with their properties is this year's Spider-Man. If you haven't seen it already, Avengers Infinity War ended with many of the characters dying, Spider-Man being one of them. As you can see in this clip, Spider-Man is shown to be dying in Infinity War. Now, if you weren't an idiot, you knew that these people were all going to come back. It's a comic book movie, and all these characters that died were the ones who Marvel had just made movies about within the last few years. But of course, at the beginning of 2019, we get a trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home, and we've only had one trailer for Endgame, where Spider-Man is still presumably dead. Ideally, many at Marvel wanted to keep Spider-Man Far From Home either coming out around this time this year or early next year, which would be 2020, so they could keep the secret that they'd all come back, even though we all knew, a bit more real, a bit more, there were stakes. But of course, Sony just did not want to do that. Like, there are many things that Sony has done that are questionable, and it goes across the whole entire company. I think many people's hopes right now for Sony, and especially Sony Pictures, since they're the ones that own Spider-Man, is that if Apple, who's been looking to buy Sony for a while, if they do that, all the Spider-Man assets do go back to Marvel. Now, this part of the video is obviously going to hurt a lot of Marvel fans. Now, I am a Marvel fan myself, but I am willing to hold them accountable for what they do. I'm a huge DC fan, but I'm going to say that their movies have not been stellar up until, recently. However, we're going to ignore the big three. The main idea of the MCU was to bring these characters together in a whole world. Now, Spider-Man would work like that if the other characters worked like that. We're going to skip on the Phase 1 characters being Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, because obviously, it was just the start of it, and Avengers was really when they started to show up. Even if the beginning of Phase 2 did kind of justify these characters coming in and helping each other in their own solo movies. However, I want to focus on the big characters that Disney and Marvel are trying to promote now that are going to be really replacing the original three. That being Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and Ant-Man. To start, why don't we go with Ant-Man? Ant-Man came out after Avengers Age of Ultron and really was showing how a connected universe can be done and you can make a solo movie in a connected universe where all these other heroes do exist. However, Ant-Man is purely, at least 70%, at least 85% of the time, is its own standalone movie. With exceptions such as this part.
See, go! Alright, Anthony, please don't drop me this time! Oh, it feels like a big leap from sugar cubes to this!
Stay calm.
Guys, we might have a problem. Didn't you say this was some old warehouse? It's not! You son of a bitch!
Scott, get out of there.
Abort. Abort now.
No, it's okay. Doesn't look like anyone's home. Anthony, get me to the roof.
He's gonna lose the suit.
He's gonna lose his life.
All right, I'm on the roof of the Target building.
Somebody's home, Scott.
What's going on down there, Sam?
It's the Falcon.
I had a sensor trip, but I'm not seeing anything. Wait a second.
Abort, Scott. Abort now.
It's okay. He can't see me.
I can see you.
He can see me. Hi. I'm Scott.
Did he just say hi, I'm Scott?
What are you doing here?
First off, I'm a big fan.
Appreciate it. So who the hell are you?
I'm Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
What, you haven't heard of me? No, you wouldn't have heard of me.
You want to tell me what you want?
I was hoping I could grab a piece of technology. Just for a few days, I can return it. They need it to save the world. You know how that is.
I know exactly how that is. Located the breach, bringing him in.
Sorry about this.
What the hell are you doing?
Breach is an adult male who has some sort of shrinking tech.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry about this. Sorry.
That's enough!
Anthony, little help.
And the end credits scene, Ant-Man is pretty much standalone. Doctor Strange is another huge Marvel character that Disney wants to cash in on right now. Doctor Strange already in the MCU is taking the Iron Man role. He's showing up in other movies where he maybe shouldn't belong, but he shows up in like Avengers, Thor Ragnarok, and he's only had one movie. His sequel's coming out soon, but he's going to be in the MCU more than he has movies. In the movie Doctor Strange, his solo movie, introducing the character, there are no references to the MCU. No major references to the MCU. And obviously this end credit scene with Thor at the end of the movie is there. That's the only thing tying this movie to the rest of the MCU. And finally, Black Panther, another big character Disney and Marvel really want to cash in on right now. Black Panther, although his origin is put in Captain America Civil War, there aren't many references to it. Sure, Claw from Avengers Age of Ultron is in the movie, but he's a side villain. Just like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man, it isn't until the end credit scene where we really see the MCU connections, with Bucky showing up at the end. Now we look at something like Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming, one of the main characters is Happy Hogan and Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. These are two characters that Sony doesn't own, but they're in the movie. Disney made the movie. However, Sony is the one shipping it out. So obviously, if they're doing this with Spider-Man, a character they don't own, then they should be doing it for Ant-Man, Black Panther, Doctor Strange. Like, Captain America should have been in Black Panther the entire time, right? But he isn't. Iron Man is a big part of Spider-Man's origin story, whereas so is Captain America to Black Panther, but not in a huge way. But the way they put Spider-Man into this universe, it's almost as if you remove Spider-Man, you are removing a key part of the future of the MCU. Obviously, this does show the strategy that Kevin Feige and his team have, but it also shows that if Sony doesn't want to pull out of the deal, then all the fans are going to suffer because they've put so much time and investment to a character that means so much in this universe. Basically, to sum it up, Sony's pretty protective and pretty strict on their rules with their properties just because they can do whatever they want. And Disney implemented and used a character much more than they should have and should have been allowed to, so the fans could have an outroar against Sony if Sony ever wanted to pull out. Now, is it sounding like I'm going after Marvel and Disney for this? It does, but it honestly is equal on both sides to give the blame to. The real proof is really, with the Marvel side, is in Spider-Man Homecoming, and even Far From Home. Iron Man is a big part of Far From Home, even if he's already dead. I don't know if anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but you've probably seen that game. This is just something I wanted to get off my chest for a little while, and now that I have, it feels kind of good.